الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Last week's lesson we made a start on the prerequisites of Salah, those things which are considered necessary before you start your Salah. Without it, your namaz would not be accepted. And we looked at two conditions or two prerequisites. The first was that you have to make sure that before you start your Salah, that your body and your clothing is free from all types of impurity and hadath. And the second condition which we looked at was with regards to covering your satar and your awrah. The satar, the awrah for a man is from his belly button up to and including his knees. So it is imperative and necessary that a male or a man, when he is praying Salah, the very least that particular area of the body is covered. Whereas for a woman and a female, it's the whole body, besides her face, her hands up to her wrist, and her feet up to her ankles. These three things a woman can leave exposed, but besides that, everything else a woman has to cover, otherwise her Salah and her namaz will not be accepted. Now we're going to continue with the second prerequisite of Salah, with Imam Quduuri rahmatullah mentioning a couple of rulings here. And the first ruling he mentioned is وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ مَا يُزِيلُ النَّجَاسَ صَلَّى مَعَهَا وَلَمْ يُعِيدْ. That if someone cannot find anything, cannot find any water, cannot find anything to remove the impurity, to remove the filth and the najas from his clothes or from his body, صَلَّى مَعَهَا, he is allowed to pray Salah with that clothing or in that same state, وَلَمْ يُعِدْ, and there is no need for him to repeat the Salah. Now the masla which the Imam is indicating to here is, just say for example, you've got some clothes, or you've got like a jubba or a kameez or a kurta or something like that, and there's some blood over your clothes. Now you've got nothing, just say you've gone somewhere like in a desert, there's no water around, or you've gone somewhere where there's no water or any kind of spray or any kind of liquid which you can use to get rid of that blood, or to get rid of that impurity, or to get rid of that filth. So the ruling is Salah ma'ah. You are allowed and you are permitted to pray Salah in that impure clothing, walam yu'id, and it is not obligatory for you to repeat that Salah. Because when you look at it, just say you've gone somewhere and you've got impure clothing, the other alternative is that you take off your clothes and you read Salah naked, which obviously, as we're going to look at later, you shouldn't intentionally do. So therefore, you are allowed and permitted to read Salah in that impure clothing. What you just need to do is that if you can find something, then that is better. But if you can't find anything, any water, any kind of liquid, any kind of spray to remove the impurities, to remove the letters, to remove the blood or urine or whatever is on your clothes which is impure, which doesn't allow you to pray the Salah, then you can pray Salah in those clothing, وَلَمْ يُعِدْ, and it is not obligatory for you to repeat the Salah. The next ruling, the author goes on to say, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ ثَوْبًا صَلَّى عُرْيَانًا قَائِدًا يُومِي بِالرُّكُوعِ وَالسُّجُودِ فَإِنْ صَلَّى قَائِمًا أَجْزَأَهُ وَالْأَوَّلُ أَفْضَلُ. Now the next ruling here which the Imam mentioned is, just say for example an individual or a person is somewhere where he cannot find any clothes. Basically, he starts naked. Sometimes what may happen is that he's gone somewhere like camping, say for example, and somebody kind of ransacked your caravan or somebody ransacked your tent, and whatever clothing you have, everything is gone. Not only your personal belongings are gone, your clothing, everything is gone. So this person is just basically naked. And the question is that how is he going to pray Salah? Now the author mentions that this individual, Salah Uryanan, he will pray Salah naked. Salah Uryanan, this person, he will pray salah naked. Now there's two ways he can pray. Either number one, he can pray the salah from a standing position, or if he wants, he can pray salah from a sitting position. So there are two things here. Either he can pray salah standing, or if he wants, he can pray salah from a sitting position. So there are two options. Now the author says here is that qa'idan yumi bil ruku wa sujud, that he should pray salah sitting down. Okay, he should pray salah sitting down, gesturing the ruku and the sajda. Okay, so he will pray salah sitting down, he will face towards the qibla, and then he will gesture. Gesture means like when a person is in, when he prays salah sitting down, then you gesture forward slightly for the ruku and even more for the sajda. So this is how he will pray salah. And then he goes on to say that if he did pray his salah from a standing position, his salah will be done. However, the first method or the first procedure is more afdal and is more best. Okay, now I'll ask you this question. Why do you think sitting down and reading salah or praying salah is more better for this individual here who's naked rather than praying salah from a standing position? Anybody want to say something? Yeah, because it covers your private part. Just an example, like you start naked. So obviously, when you are sitting down on the floor or on the desert, whatever you are, so obviously when you are sitting down, your backside is covered. And obviously, if you are going to pray salah in such a way, like for example, lifting one leg up and bowing down, so to a certain extent, your private part will be covered as well. So it is more preferable to pray your salah in that particular state rather than reading salah standing up so that everybody can see your backside and your front private part. So the author is saying that it's more better to pray salah from a sitting position. However, if he did pray salah from a standing position, then inshallah his salah will be done. Now going on back onto the prerequisites of salah, so two, alhamdulillah, we've already looked at. The third prerequisite of salah is intention. وَيَنْوِي لِلصَّلَاةِ, that you have to make an intention for salah. Now, we're going to look at this, I think, in a bit more detail when we, in particular, look at fasting and zakat and so on. But intention is something which is imperative for every ibadah and for every worship you do. Any worship you do, intention and niyyah is important. Without intention, your salah would not be accepted, even your fasting would not be accepted, even your zakat would not be accepted, even your hajj would not be accepted. We don't make an intention for hajj. And just, even though you may have put on your two garments, your izar and your chadar and your rida, and you go to Makkah, your hajj is not going to be accepted unless you make an intention. So what I'm trying to say is that intention is imperative and necessary for every single action which you do. And I mentioned this, I did talk about the importance of intention. If you remember at the very beginning of this book, when we were looking at wudu, that before you make wudu, it is also sunnah, not necessarily, but a sunnah, mustahab, desirable to make intention. And then I went on to talk about that it is imperative that any kind of good deed or amal which we do, we have to make sure that it is exclusively done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mukhlisina lahu din, which means that we do everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we are worshipping, we shouldn't be worshipping someone else. We shouldn't be thinking that, oh, we are reading salah or praying salah for somebody else. Because what will then happen is, on the day of judgment, we will be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinking that all the good deeds which we have done in this world, like we prayed a lot of prayers or we fasted and so on, but because you did it for someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all your a'mal and good deeds will be invalid and will be cancelled or will be, as they say in Urdu, bekar and love and invalid in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's important that whenever we pray salah, not only we make the intention for the salah which we are praying, but also we try to make sure that we are doing it exclusively for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to please our parents, not to please our friends, not to please our wives, not to please our children, but we're doing it just for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. So that again is another prerequisite of salah, is that you make an intention. Now another important mas'ala regarding intention is that when it comes to intention, we don't look at verbally what is being said, but we look at what is in the heart. And the first mas'ala which I want to touch on today is that whenever you start your salah, it's not necessary for you to make the intention verbally. It's like a practice of our people from Bangladesh and Pakistan that they make the intention verbally. They will say, oh, nawaitu an usalliya lillahi ta'ala. They will, say the Arabic intention, or they will even say it Urdu loudly that, oh, I'm praying, 4 rakat salah, in front of the Kaaba, behind the Imam, and so on. So they will say the intention verbally. Now, obviously, if they want to do it, I'm not saying it's lawful for them to do it, but they can. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not necessary to say it verbally. Intention literally means aqdul qalb, i.e. what you feel in your heart, or the intention you make in your heart. So if in your heart you have made the intention for Dhuhr, and you come and just say Allahu Akbar and you start your salah, your Dhuhr salah will be done. The Dhuhr salah will be done. So what I'm trying to say is that intention is based on your heart. Obviously, if you want to then say verbally just to be on the safe side, or just to, for those in particular who have doubts that or which salah they're reading, so they kind of feel comfortable when they say verbally, then that's okay. But what I'm trying to say is that what you make the intention in the heart, that is necessary and that is taken into consideration. And I'll give you an example that the scholars have said, that just say, for example, a person, he left home and he was just Maghrib Salah, it was Maghrib time, so obviously the sun is about to set, and in his heart, he made the intention for Maghrib. Like, he did wudu at home with the intention that I'm going to the masjid to pray Maghrib Salah. He comes into the masjid, again, his intention is Maghrib. Then he starts the Salah, and before he was about to start the Takbir al-Tahlima, he made the intention verbally, but by mistake, he said, oh, I'm praying Isha. By mistake from his tongue, the word Isha slipped out, and then he said, Allahu Akbar. Now, the namaz which he's going to now read is going to be Maghrib Salah and not Isha. Why? Because his intention has always been Maghrib. So even though before you started Allahu Akbar, you just said it by mistake, Isha Salah or Zuhr Salah or Asr Salah, we're not going to take that into consideration, but we're going to take into consideration what was in the heart. So therefore his Maghrib Salah, whatever he intended in the heart will be accepted, and that is being highlighted here, that وَيَنْوِي لِلصَّلَاةِ, that he should make an intention for the prayer, الَّتِي يَدْخُلُ فِيهَا, which is entering. The Salah which you are about to pray, so you should make an intention for that. He goes on to say, لا يفصل بينها وبين التحريمة بعمل. Very important. That there should be no gap between the intention and between the subsequent salah. So even though you may be making the intention in your heart, but from the intention and up to the subsequent salah, there shouldn't be any action which kind of diverts you away from the salah. Like what I mean by that is, just say for example, again you made the intention of Maghrib at home. Okay, that you're going to be praying Maghrib Salah. But then what happened was, on the way to the masjid, I don't know, you get a call from home or from somewhere that someone's ill or someone's gone hospital, whatever. So you rush to the hospital. Now you've gone hospital, seen whatever the issue, the problem. Then you come back to the masjid. Now in that situation, you can't just go to the masjid and say Allahu Akbar and start your salah. Why? Because between the intention and your subsequent salah, there's been an action which obviously is against the salah, something which is not connected with the salah. So in those situations, you will then have to renew your intention. Okay, so even little things such as something happened, or you made the intention for Maghrib, but then you did something like you started eating, you were going to the masjid, but then you felt hungry and you just went to the takeaway and you ordered a pizza and you ate for half an hour, 45 minutes, then afterwards you come and start salah, then again you will have to renew your intention. Okay, so any kind of amal or any kind of action which is against the concept of salah, if you were to do it, then you will have to renew your intention again. So that is the third prerequisite of salah. The fourth prerequisite of salah is وَيَسْتَقْبِلُ الْقِبْلَةِ, and that is that you have to face towards the Qibla. And that's very important. Obviously, as I gave this example last week as well, that even though you're praying your salah correctly according to the sunnah, even though you're in the state of wudu, but if you are praying salah that direction, the salah is not going to be accepted. Okay, knowingly or intentionally to pray salah at a direction other than the Qibla then that will break the salah and your namaz will not be accepted. Okay, there are some examples which we're going to look at later where, for example, if you've gone somewhere like traveling, you stopped over a service station, you want to pray salah but you don't know which way Qibla is, then we look at it later, then there's some kind of leeway and bookmark. But generally speaking, intentionally to pray salah in a direction other than the Qibla, then your namaz is not going to be accepted. I'm just going to elaborate on this topic regarding Qibla here. And a couple of things which I want to say regarding this issue and topic. Now remember the Jewish, the Fuqaha have said that if someone is living in Makkah, or to be more precise, like basically in the Haram, or in the Baytullah, around the Baytullah, then it is obligatory, like Farz, that he faces towards the Baytullah, the house of Allah, without any exception, without any udhr, no ifs or buts, he has to face directly to the Baytullah. So if those who been for Hajj Umrah will know that when you are in the Baytullah, then whichever direction you may be, so whether you may be like near the Hajar Aswad, the black stone side, or whether you may be around the Rukn al-Yamani side, whatever, whichever angle you may be, you have to face towards the Baytullah. You have to be basically precise and bang on. Okay, any kind of here and there, any kind of like, misfiring here with the direction, then your salah is not going to be accepted. You have to be proper, precise facing towards the Baytullah. That's if you are in the Haram, i.e. in the Baytullah area. Now for those who are not living in the Baytullah, or not living near the Baytullah, or not praying near the Baytullah, then for them it's not necessary that they have to be facing bang on to the Qibla. But the jurists have said that there is a discretion of up to 45 degrees either side. What I mean by that is, just say for example, if the Baytullah was here, or just say here in front of me, then you've got this discretion to face up to 45 degrees either side. So just say 45 degrees. If the Qibla, just imagine the word bang on straight in front of me. So just say 45 degrees from the Qibla, say will be up to here. So you've got this discretion to pray salah facing, say, that direction. Even though it's not bang on to the Baytullah, to the house of Allah, but because it's within the 45 degrees radius, you can pray your salah. Remember, that is only for those who are not reading or praying salah near the Baytullah, but away from the Baytullah, i.e. in UK, America, Canada, whatever they are, then they've got the discretion to pray salah within the 45 degrees radius of the Baytullah. Now this takes me on to another issue here, and that is with regard to using kind of scientific instruments to determine the Baytullah. Now, the ruling which I'm going to mention as given by the jurists is in particular for when a new masjid is being made. Now, the practice of the companions and of the tabi'in, the predecessors and their predecessors, the tabi' tabi'in, have always been, whenever a new masjid would be made, they would always follow the direction of the existing masjid which is in that area or in that locality or in that city or town. Just as for example, there's a masjid here, so the Qibla is that way. So just say someone decides to then buy little and then make that into a masjid, so you shouldn't be using a compass or any other kind of scientific instruments or going to Google QiblaLocator.com. What you should do is that you just face the whatever the direction of the previous or the existing masjid is, you should just face that. However, in areas where, like for example, and this also by the way goes for homes as well, for houses as well. So let's say for example, like you bought a house and the house is near to a masjid, or there's a masjid in that same locality. Again, you shouldn't be using compasses or again any other kind of scientific means to determine where the Qibla is. There's a masjid in the area, whichever direction they're facing their salah or they're facing for salah, should face that direction for salah and for namaz. However, if you say, for example, if it's in an area where there is no masjid, or you say, for example, building a new masjid in an area where there is no masjid, or you're buying a house in an area where there is no masjid at all, then only in those situations the jurists have said that, okay, fair enough, you can use a compass, or you can use other kind of scientific means to determine the direction of the Qibla. And I'm inshallah touch on this topic a bit more detail when we look at the Ramadan section, and in particular the issue with regards to sighting the moon, and the whole issue of using the, well, not compass, but the astronomic side and the scientific side of determining the birth of the new moon and so on. Inshallah, we look at it there. But basically, Islam is a simple religion, okay, and Islam just says that whatever means which you have in front of you, either things with the naked eye or with your bare hand, through that particular way you should determine Qibla. Through the naked eye you should determine the sighting of the moon, and not with other scientific means. So that is the masla here, that the fourth prerequisite of Salah is وَيَسْتَقْبِلُ الْقِبْلَةِ, that you should face towards the Qibla. There's an exception there, it says إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ خَائِفًا فَيُصَلِّي إِلَىٰ أَيِّ جِهَةٍ قَدَرَ, which means the exception is, unless facing towards the Qibla is difficult or is scary. Now, well, not scary meaning like you being in the state of fear. What I mean by that, again, we're going to look at this later on as well. Just say, for example, you may be traveling somewhere and there may be an enemy who's attacking you. So in that situation, if you were to say face towards the Qibla, say Qibla for argument's sake in that direction, so if you were to face that direction, there may be a danger that your capturer may find you and he may get hold of you. So therefore, in that situation, if you then decide to turn the direction and pray that way or any other way, in a concealed way where you think that your enemy would not get hold of you, then in that situation it should be allowed and permissible. And also we're going to look at it later, that nafil salah, optional prayer, there is no restriction of facing the Qibla when it comes to optional prayer. Just say, for example, you're traveling, say, from Birmingham to London, and you're in the car. So you've got 2 hours there, you could pray your optional salah in the car. You know, to the extent that you don't even have to be standing up for optional prayer. You could be sitting in the car and praying your optional salah, whichever direction you may be traveling to. Now, the next couple of rulings here tells us about something which is very important, and that is, again, linked with the Qibla masla. And that is that just say you've gone somewhere to an area where you do not know which way or which direction the Qibla is. Or like, for example, you stopped over at a service station and you don't know which direction the Qibla is. Now, the author here is saying that firstly what you should do is try to do something which in Arabic is known as ijtihad, which means that try to look at the situation, try to determine where you are and think that to the best of your ability which way the direction of Qibla is. Now what I mean by that is, for example, we living in Birmingham, the direction of Qibla is southeast. Basically, you know, the direction of London, where London is, Qibla is to that direction. Because the direction which we face to London, that more or less is the direction which is to the Baytullah in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. So what I'm trying to say is that, just say for example, if you are traveling, say, from Birmingham to Manchester, so you're on the motorway, obviously the motorway is going up. So obviously, if the roads are going this way to Manchester and you stop over a service station, then obviously your Qibla, it doesn't again has to be precise, but your Qibla most likely will be the other way around, facing the other direction. Or just say, for example, you're traveling from Birmingham to London, so again, because as I said, the direction of Qibla is towards London, so therefore the road which you are following, just pray your salah facing that particular direction. As I said, these are just some kind of like, you know, you could say tips to determine where the Qibla is. Another kind of tip somebody told me is that whenever you find a satellite dish, that's also facing towards the Qibla as well. So again, if you like gone somewhere, you're stuck somewhere, and you're not sure which way the Qibla is, you know, look for the nearest satellite dish or the nearest pub or something. They probably will have a satellite dish as well. So, you know, look which direction it's facing and then pray salah there. These are all tips to determine which way Qibla is. Obviously, some people may use compass, Some people may do something else. Allah Alam, whatever tips that you think is relevant here to determine the Qibla, then use that by all means use it so that you can determine the Qibla. So this is what is mentioned here. Like it goes on to say, فَإِنِ اشْتَبَهَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِبْلَةِ, that if someone is somewhere where the Qibla is mushtabih, meaning that he doesn't know where exactly the Qibla is. وَلَيْسَ بِحَضْرَتِهِ مَنْ يَسْأَلُهُ عَنْهَا اجْتَهَدَ. And there is no one else there who you should ask regarding it. Basically, there's no other, say, Muslim there, who you can ask, okay, brother, which way is the Qibla, sister, which way is the Qibla. So in that situation, ijtihada, you will have to do ijtihad. As I already mentioned, try to take a guess, use some tips, try to take a guess which way or which direction Qibla is, wa salla, and pray the salah. Now this is quite important. Then he goes and says, فَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهُ أَخْطَأَ بَعْدَ مَا صَلَّى فَلَا إِعَادَةَ عَلَيْهِ. Now if a person, if he realizes after he prays his salah that indeed he has made a mistake, that he did his ijtihad, he did all his investigation and he assumed that Qibla was that direction. He prays his salah, then afterwards someone comes and tells him that, oh, actually Qibla is that way, or then he realizes that actually Qibla should be that way. Now if he realizes his mistake after he prayed his salah, and this is important, فَلَا إِعَادَةَ عَلَيْهِ, there is no need for him to repeat the salah. You don't have to repeat that salah again. That's it. It's gone. Alhamdulillah, your namaz will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't have to then repeat the whole salah again. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ, now this is important where a lot of people get stuck. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ ذَلِكَ وَهُوَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ إِسْتَدَارَ إِلَى الْقِبْلَةِ وَبَنَى عَلَيْهَا. Then he goes on to say that if this person realizes whilst in salah, let's say he's in salah, and before he started his salah and his namaz, he realized that Qibla is that direction. So he started his salah facing that direction. Then somebody comes and tells him that no, Qibla is that direction. Now what a lot of people do in that situation is they just break the salah and they start all over again. Obviously you can do that, but preferable not to. What you should do is what is mentioned here, and that is in salah, in namaz, you should turn towards that direction. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Turning towards that direction is nothing strange like that, because there is a hadith, which very famous hadith of Sayyid Bukhari, Sayyid Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, where he talks about the story of Masjid Qiblatayn, or the people of Kuba. That what happened was that in Salah, the order came, they were praying Zuhr as far as on top of my head, and then the order came from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to change the Qibla back to Baytullah. Initially the Qibla was towards Baytul Maqdis. When the Muslims migrated to Medina Munawwara, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to get the Jews and the Banu Israel more closer towards Islam, said that okay, for 16 to 17 months the Qibla would be towards the Baytul Maqdis. But then afterwards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the order that no, the Qibla now will be back to the Baytullah. So this happened whilst the people were praying the Asr Salah. As I said, I think top of my head is the Asr Salah, and then the order was given. So in Salah, they actually turned. They turned in Salah from Baytul Maqdis all the way to the Baytullah. So this is what this text is telling us here as well. If you are in Salah and you're facing towards a particular direction, and then somebody whilst in Salah tells, oh brother, you're reading the wrong direction, and then you are allowed, no need for you to break the Salah and start all over again, but you are allowed to, in Salah, turn towards that particular direction, and your Salah will be good. So alhamdulillah, that concludes the section with regards to the prerequisites and the shari'ah of Salah. The next section which we're going to start here is the, how should I describe it, it's the meat of the section regarding Salah, which talks about the procedure of praying Salah. So what we've been looking at thus far has all been regarding the conditions. Even when you look at the section regarding wudu and ghusl, that's also got to do with conditions of salah. You have to make sure that you're clean, you have to make sure that your area is clean, the body, the clothes, everything is clean. So now we're going to look at the main crux of this particular section, and that is regarding the procedure of praying salah. Now there are 6 fara'id, or there are 6 compulsory acts or first acts of salah. Same way you have 6 things which are prerequisites of salah which you have to do. Similarly, there are 6 conditions which is a must in salah. No, it's a must, you have to do it, otherwise your salah will not be done. We're going to look at it later. There are also things which are considered wajib and obligatory in salah. Now, with regards to wajib in salah, if you were to miss the mass, it's okay in terms of if you were to use sajda sahwa, and again, it's a section which we're going to look at detail later, then your salah will be okay and rectified. But the first is something that if you miss it out, you have to repeat the salah again. Let's say 2 sajdas is first. Now, if one says you just did 1 and you finish your salah and your namaz is not going to be done, you have to repeat the salah again. So these 6 things are something which is compulsory and farz in salah. And let's look at them one by one. Number 1 is at-tahrima. The first thing which is farz in salah is to say the takbir at-tahrima, i.e. Allahu Akbar. So to start the salah off by saying Allahu Akbar or anything which indicates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness, then that is permissible and that is allowed. Now let me just look at this ruling in a bit more detail. Now according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi, he says that you actually start the salah with the word Allahu Akbar, that is only wajib. It's not first, but it's just wajib and obligatory. But what Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi says is that any word which indicates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness, then that is first in salah. So to begin the salah with any word which indicates to Allah's greatness, then that is first. And to actually say Allahu Akbar, that is just wajib. Now those who are accustomed with the Arabic language will know that there are many other words which give the meaning of greatest. Akbar literally means greatest, Allah the greatest. So there are many words which give the meaning of greatness, such as the word A'zam or Azim or Kabir. So if somebody says, for example, started his salah by saying Allahu A'zam, then the first nature, the compulsory nature of his salah will be done. But because to say Allahu Akbar is wajib, he missed that out. So at the end he will have to do sajda sahwa, otherwise his salah will not be done. Or if somebody said Allahu Azim and then he started his salah, again his salah will be done, but because he missed out the wajib nature of his salah, the first the wajib of salah in terms of not saying Allahu Akbar, then he will have to do sajda sahwa again. So that is something which is very important. The second compulsory act of salah, number 2, is standing, qiyam. So you do the takbir tahrima. The next compulsory and first act of salah is qiyam and standing. Now, what is the definition of standing? The scholars have said that standing, the definition of standing is that if a person was to stretch out his hand or his arm, he would not be able to reach his knees. So that is the definition of standing. Now what I mean by that is, you sometimes see some people when they're praying salah, their back is like proper bent. So the question we need to ask ourselves, like a objective test here, is that is his back so bent that if he was to stretch his arm, he would easily touch his kneecap? And if the answer is yes, that it's so bent, like basically some people that pray salah like this, so close, so bent down, that if they were to stretch their arm, they would easily touch their kneecap. If that is the case, then that is not qiyam, that is not standing, and such a person will have to repeat his salah all over again. But if he's kind of like bending down slightly, as some people do, bending down a bit slightly, and obviously it's so less in terms of if they were to stretch their arms, they would not be able to reach the kneecap, then that is sufficient, and that is also considered as qiyam, and this salah will be done. As I said, I was going to look at it later as well, that standing is only farz for farz prayers and for wajib prayers. Those prayers which are farz are your 5 daily prayers, Jummah prayers, and those prayers which are wajib, such as the witr salah, the Eid salah, and so on. For those prayers, it is obligatory for you to stand. Okay, you have to stand. Obviously, those who are ill, they get discretion and they've got some rukhsah. But just for the first prayers and the wajib prayers, you have to stand. As for the other prayers, like for example, nafal and sunnat ghair muakkada, okay, there is some kind of flexibility in terms of sitting down. So when we sunnat ghair muakkada, you say the 4 rakats before asr. So for those prayers, if you say, for example, were to sit down and pray them, then your salah would be accepted. Okay, but we're going to look at this later on as well. If you do pray your salah sitting down, then you only get half the reward if you were to pray standing up. So therefore, especially those who are healthy and young, try to pray your salah standing up, because you get double reward, or you get the maximum reward. Whereas if you were to pray your salah sitting down, you'll only get half the reward. The next condition here of salah, the next first act of salah, is something which is called in Arabic al-qira'ah, i.e. recitation. Now, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi says that in salah or in namaz, it is first compulsory that you recite at least one verse of the Holy Quran. Okay, forget about Surah Fatiha, we'll come back to Surah Fatiha later. We're just talking about just reciting one verse of the Holy Quran, that is first in salah. Now, that then takes me on to the next question. Like, what do we mean by one verse of the Holy Quran? Because there are certain verses in the Holy Quran which is like 1 page long. There are certain verses in the Holy Quran which is like half a line long. So what do we mean by reciting one verse of the Holy Quran? Now, the scholars have said that the verse which you are reciting, it has to consist of 2 words. So the verse, it has to be the minimum 2 words. So like for example in Surah Al-Mudaththir, where it says, Summa Nazar. So if somebody just recited Summa Nazar, then the compulsory nature, the obligatory nature of the salah would be done. However, if somebody recited a 1-word verse, such as in Surah Ar-Rahman, where Allah says, Mudhammatan, then his salah will not be done. So if somebody was to say, Allahu Akbar, Mudhammatan, Allahu Akbar, then his salah will not be done. Okay, so it has to be at least, the very least 2 words. Similarly, 1-letter verses, it is not permissible to recite, such as Noon, Qaf, 2-letter verses such as Hamid. So those kind of verses are not sufficient, they're not considered as 1 verse. Now remember, it is first to recite in every rakat of witr prayer and every rakat of first prayer. So it is first to recite in every rakat of witr prayer and every rakat of first prayer. Actually, let me rephrase again. It's first to recite in every rakat of witr and sunnat prayer, sunnat or nafal prayer. However, for first prayers, as we're going to look at later, then it's only obligatory to recite in the first 2 rakats and not in the last 2. Just one masla before we finish is, what about non-Muslims? Not non-Muslims, those who are reverts or converts. How would they pray the salah? Because obviously we just mentioned that they have to recite 1 verse for the salah to be done. But just say somebody half an hour or just say 10 minutes before salah, they became a Muslim, so how would they pray the salah? And the ruling with regard to reverts or converts is that they should be encouraged to learn the surahs as soon as possible. But up to the point when they learn the surah, they are allowed to just recite Subhanallah or Alhamdulillah or these kind of tasbih in the salah until they are able to memorize Surah Fatiha and the small surah like Inna A'tayna Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Until they can do that, then they are, it is permissible for them just to recite tasbih like Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar in the namaz, and their recitation will be considered sufficient. And the same also applies for those people who are, shall I say, mentally disabled or ill, who cannot memorize. Okay, or basically they are aware of things. There are some people who are aware of everything in terms of they can pray the salah, they've got the capability to pray the salah, but they have a speech problem in terms of they cannot memorize, or they cannot speak, or when they look at things they can't. So for them, it's not compulsory that they have to recite Surah Fatiha. You don't have to send them to the local mosque and get them beaten up and make sure that you have to pray, read Surah Fatiha and so on. In that situation, if they were to just read Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, then that will be sufficient and the namaz will be there. So we'll leave it there for this week and Allah the tawfiq shakaman. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma